hey, are you moving to Tampa or do you currently live here?
Or are you renting and are you ready to buy your first home in Tampa? Well, we got a little checklist for you that you might need to know before you make that purchase. So, ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's dive right into it. And just to go with what she just said, these are if you're a first time home buyer or maybe you're upsell, you haven't bought in a while and you're looking to purchase here in Tampa.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go over some questions for first-time home buyers in Tampa. Again, that doesn't mean you're a first-time home buyer, but Tampa might be a little bit different. So let me ask you a question. What are the steps to buying your first home in Tampa?
Wow, that's a loaded question. The first steps in buying a home, and I tell all my clients or past clients this way, is that the first thing you need to do is check your credit. And what do we mean by check your credit? That means you can actually go to all three sites and have your credit pulled yourself. That is whether it's Equifax, whether it's TransUnion, or whether it's Experian. It's absolutely free for you to do so. This gives you an insight of what your credit is before you go to a lender and you get pre-approved. You may have something on your credit that's not yours. That at that time is a time for you to dispute it. Or you may not understand what this is, but now you already have it in hand that you can ask the questions to the appropriate lender and say, look, what can I do with this? Why is this here? Should I move this? So to me, that's one of the first steps it's going to take for you to purchase the home. The second step then is what you would do is look at your budget, right? To understand exactly how much you can afford and, does it make mathematical sense now to you purchase now? Do you wait to purchase 6 months from now? And how does it equate if you're currently renting or not renting what you're already paying based on what's going on to the market? So once you create the budget, then at that point in time, you go get pre-approved from a lender. Once you get pre-approved with that lender, then the next step is, unless it's something that you want to say, babe, the next step is that you get your pre-approval amount. Get your pre-approval amount, you get with the right agent. Hopefully it's me, of course. And now we're ready to start looking for homes. But before we go further with that, let's dive into some more of these questions that we have here.
Okay, I do have a question. Now, Tampa is a hot market. It's one of the top 10 cities people want to move to for many different reasons. So because it is so hot, how much money would you need to even move here or to buy a house? Do you need a lot of money to put down? Like, what is your opinion with the Tampa market as far as how much money you need?
So how much money you put down is already pretty much designated. And what I mean by that, depending on what program you use. So like FHA, it's a minimum requirement of 3.5% down. And what does that mean? Of a $100,000 home, you're looking at putting in $3,500, right? Of a $200,000 home, you're looking at $7,000. So it's dependent upon the loan program. Conventional, the minimum amount that you can do is 3%. Typically, it's around 5%. Some people do 10%, right? VA is 100%. No down payment is required. And then lastly, we have what they call USDA loans based on the area. At that point in time, you get down payment assistance to help you at that point in time. So currently, you wouldn't need any money to put down with that program. Okay. But you can always put down more, right?
Realistically, though, you said $100,000. That's down $200,000. Are there realistically homes in Tampa for $100,000, $150,000?
I would say in Tampa, depending on how many bedrooms you want, the average buyer probably spends around $350,000. $350,000.
Okay, so with a home average $350,000 now, what are some of the best neighborhoods in Tampa? And those best neighborhoods, what are the average cost of those homes?
Okay, so some of the best neighborhoods are absolutely probably right on the outskirts of Tampa. So you have areas like Wesley Chapel, Zephyr Hills, some of the growing areas, Lutz, Lando Lakes. That's north of Tampa, right? And then we have areas called New Tampa, which is, of course, Tampa, but definitely north of Tampa as well. Those homes there, depending again on how many bedrooms, you for a townhome or single family, detached home can start anywhere from the low 300s and go on upwards, of course, to $1 million and up, right? But I would say the average person in those neighborhoods, depending on what you want, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, you can get something still in the threes, right? Once you start getting to the 4-bedroom range, square footage wise, 1,800, 2,000, 2,500 square feet. At that point in time, now you're looking in the fours, right? For new construction anyway. Resale is slightly different. Can be a little bit less when you get some new construction. It can save you a few dollars, but you got to weigh the options, right? New construction versus resale.
Wait, okay, because that's one of my questions. So we might as well get into it. You believe, like, what's the difference for those that don't know what a pre-sale, a pre-owned, or if I'm saying that even right, versus a new construction? Because new construction, I mean, they build it from scratch.
Right.
Is that more? Is that like, what's the difference?
Right.
And what's better?
Right. So I am going to answer that question, but I do want to give you this preface, right? Is that I am the licensed realtor. I've been licensed now for over 20 years. I'm licensed in the state of Florida, also in the state of Georgia. My wife here, Bernetta, she is not licensed at all, right? She is not in real estate. She doesn't know anything about real estate. Well, she does know a little bit, being around me, right? I'm not going to say that, right? Right. But I will say this though. So her questions are very valid and very real. That every day, if you're not in real estate, you have those valid questions. So I do want to make that plain. That she's not just here just asking me, questions.
Yes, I want to represent you. I want to represent the people, the buyer, the consumer that knows a little bit about real estate, but not an expert, and especially an expert in the Tampa market. So let's get back into it and let's talk about a regular home that's already built versus new construction, which means once you buy it, they then build it from scratch, from the ground up, which is better.
Right. So it really depends, right? That's a loaded question. And why I say this is because just like cars, just like anything else, I would say that a lot older homes were built a lot better than they are today, just because, the wood was bigger, the materials are different. Now, code is definitely better today than it was then. So today's home could actually be better, right? So every home is independently checked out, inspected, looked over. Me as an agent, I go out and preview the homes with the clients. And to make sure, and I teach and train my team members to do the same thing, is that we're looking for deficiencies. We're looking at how they're built. We're looking at the foundation. We're looking at cracks. We're looking at all these different things that matter, whether a home is resale or whether new. I tell people all the time is that new construction or resale, you should always get a home inspection, right? So because it's new, you don't just say, well, it's new, we don't need a home inspection. You definitely need a home inspection with new construction. Now, one thing you do get with new construction, you get new roof, you get warranty, you get all this good stuff as well. But with resales, you may also get the same thing, right? If they've already put in new roof, new appliances, and new floors. But you may also get some upgrades, like a swimming pool, like a fenced yard, that with new construction you may not get. So it really depends on what area you want to be in, like we talked about Wesley Chapel, and then some of the other areas that I did not mention is if you go down south, right? So a lot of the hot growing areas are Riverview, Ruskin, Wild Mama.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Real quick, when he says, like with a resale, you might get a pool, you might get this, but on the flip side, on the new construction, if you don't want a pool, a lot of these new communities with the new construction are building what they call lagoons. So that's like your own little mini beach within your neighborhood that has like you know what a lagoon is? It is like a beach. It's a man-made beach. The water's always blue. The sand is always white. They have the cabanas and all the things. And that is literally in your community. And they are building a lot of those kind of neighborhoods here in the Tampa area.
Yes, they are. And we do have some in the south of Tampa. We have some north of Tampa. We have some going up east and also west of Tampa. And so if you're definitely interested in any of the lagoon communities, definitely reach out to us and we'd love to share those with you. Now, what's the next question you have for us today?
Well, you talked about, see, it's getting me excited. Like if I didn't live here and already own a house, like I would be ready to move to Tampa. But to get back to the money, let's talk about the people who want to buy but then don't know what's the difference between pre-approved and pre-qualified. Can you explain that so they can see how their money is looking?
Oh, most definitely. So the difference, sometimes the misconception is that you say you're pre-approved, but you're actually pre-qualified. But what is pre-qualification? What pre-qualification is where when you talk to the lender or loan officer or consultant or bank, what happens is they talk to you over the phone or through email and they ask you a series of questions. They ask you what your income is. They ask you how long you've been on your job. They ask you what's your debts. What do you owe? Do you have any bankruptcies? All these different things, right? So when they ask you these questions, they go by your verbal on offering what amount is. That's what we call pre-qualified. What a pre-approval is that they actually pull your credit, right? They ask you to send in documentation to show your W-2s, pay stubs, possibly 1099s, depending on if you're self-employed or not, right? And they actually do a little bit more thorough check, or a lot more thorough check. And that's a pre-approval. A pre-approval is a lot more solid than what a pre-qualification is, because sometimes things can show up in a credit or with your job, or where the case may be, that would not show up just verbally. So that is the difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval.
Do real estate agents take people out based on pre-qual, because pre-qual, like I said, is based on what you just say. They're going by what you say, but pre-approved, they actually got documentation. This is what it is. Do you all take people out based on a pre-qualified?
So I would say me and my team, we take people out based on their pre-approved amount, right? Okay. And also not just based on our pre-approved amount, because I want to make this clear. Our job is to listen to you and get you exactly what you're looking for. So you may be pre-approved for $500,000, but you don't want to purchase something around $350,000, $400,000. Well, our job is to listen to you, and we're taking you out to see homes at $350,000, $400,000, not what you're pre-approved for. So it starts at the pre-approval, but once we have the conversation, you answer some questions that we may have, you give us your criteria. At that point in time, we can determine which direction we want to go when it comes to price range.
Okay, so let's get this out the way too with the pre-approval and pre-qualified. As a realtor, one of the questions on our list is, do you need a certain credit score to move to Tampa? But does that really have anything to do with the realtor, or that's really more the loan officer?
So it doesn't really have anything. It does a little bit have something to do with the loan officer, not necessarily the realtor, but it's part of the whole process, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, you do need a certain credit score to purchase a home, right? Whether it's to invest in or just purchase for yourself. And what I mean by that is that the minimum credit score that's needed by the Federal Housing Authority is a 580 credit score. Okay. That's the minimum. But a lot of banks and brokers that's in a lending institution also have their overlays. What do you mean by overlays? They have their own criteria of what it's going to take to lend a home. Some banks may say they need 600. Some banks they may say 620. Some may take the 580. But I will tell you, having a score of 580 may not always get you the best interest rate, right? So of course, the higher your score, just like buying a car or anything else, the higher your interest rate is the higher your credit is the better, or the lower your interest rate.
That's what I was going to ask you. Basically, the better your score, the better the interest rate, which means the lower your payment. The lower, especially if you're going to be in your house 7 to 10 years, you want the lowest payment possible. So you want the best credit score possible.
Right. And that also determines what we call private mortgage insurance as well. I know we're covering a lot here, so please, if you have any questions, I'll put them in the comments. Reach out to me. I would love to set up an appointment to talk to you one-on-one to see what is your specific goals, where you are financially, what is your debt looking like financially, and we can walk you through the process. Because one of the things that we didn't talk about is that if you put down 20%, you also save some money as well in what they call private mortgage insurance. And that gets released or is not part of your loan. Private mortgage insurance ranges anywhere from about $150 to $250 based on your credit and how much money you put down. And that's added to your principal and interest, right? Your taxes and your homeowner's insurance.
Okay. So question, we know a lot of people have student loans, right? Raise your hand if you had a student loan. I don't have it anymore, but I had one, and so did he.
Yeah, you had a very big one. I had a very small one,
though. Right. But question, to move to buy a house here in Tampa, can you have a student loan and buy a home? And does that affect you in a negative way?
Of course you can buy a student loan. I would say, sorry. Hey man, today is a great day. And of course you can buy a home with the student loan. Over 80%, this studies between 7 and 80% of Americans have a student loan, right? So in that case, no one will be able to buy. Mm-hmm. But you can have a student loan. You just have to be paying on that student loan. What I mean by paying on that student loan, if it's not deferred, right? If it's deferred for at least a year or a certain time frame, you can still purchase a home and not necessarily count all that payment that goes towards it. But if it's not deferred, the monthly has to be paid. Now, if you have not been paying on it and it's not deferred and it's behind, you will have to establish some type of payment system with the lending institution for your student loans in order to purchase at that time. And then, like, again, everybody's situation is a little different. So, of course, message me. Put in the comments. Let's set up a one-on-one call. I do offer free 15, 30-minute strategy calls to see where you are and consult you with whatever your real estate needs are.
So with the student loan, we know that if you do have a student loan, then of course, then you'll be adding on a mortgage, so on and so forth. Right. So that leads me to ask about a monthly budget if you close on the home. How much should somebody budget for monthly home ownership costs beyond the mortgage?
Yes. So what you should budget is for utilities, right? House maintenance, right? And repairs. That kind of goes in hand with house maintenance. And we say utilities. Down here in Florida, we have predominantly, we have water and we have electric. There are certain neighborhoods that have gas, but we don't have gas like a lot of other states do. It's not as widespread. So predominantly, it's going to be utilities, it's going to be water and electric. In some instances, you may just have electric. because we do have areas where they have well and septic. And septic is for the sewage, well is for the water. In that case right there, you would not have a water or sewer bill. So those utilities. We always say that for maintenance wise, you should be able to put away a couple $100 a month, at least $100 a month. That gives you $1,200 for the year for basic maintenance. That's like,
tell them what y'all about to say. Tell them what some basic
so like basic maintenance would be changing air filters, right? You should at least change that minimum at least every quarter, right? The next thing you do is, and we can go into more detail, is that get your house painted. Well, it's every 5 to 7 years or so, right? It keeps it looking fresh, keeps the cracks down, it helps with the insulation.
No, I was just thinking about, and then little things that just break around the house that you do not expect, but that could be a big cost. For example, last night, our pipe bust under our kitchen sink. So who had to fix it? But like now, the bottom of the wood part is, just the bottom is not right. So we got to go get some wood. It's an unexpected thing that we weren't having, expected to happen. But it happens all the time in your house, just little things. And because you're the homeowner, you have to cover the cost. So
right. And sometimes those are easy fixes. Like what it was is, it wasn't necessarily a pipe work, but it was a pipe that was underneath that got unseated, and which it did cause a massive leak because we didn't know how long it's been leaking there. My daughter washes the dishes, and I noticed some water on the floor coming up under the floor, and I'm like, man, I thought it was the refrigerator, but in essence, it was not. Which turned into there's water on the floor, to a few hours ordeal trying to locate the leak.
I told him
to dry it up.
Our man, they want to do it. But he did it. We did it.
So we did stop the leak. We still have some repairs to take place, and but we budget for those as well as far as the maintenance and repairs. So between $100 $200 a month, I would say put away for things like that.
Yeah.
Roofs usually last anywhere from 10 to 20 years here in Florida, sometimes 25, depending on the type of roof. HVACs usually last at least 10 years, sometimes longer. And then hot water heaters around the same 10 years, but sometimes longer. It just really depends on the use and where they're located.
Also, when you buy your home, you will learn how old your roof is, how old your hot water heater is, so you'll kind of know how much longer you have before you need to worry about that. Right. What are some common mistakes first-time home buyers make in Tampa, and how can they avoid them?
Some of the common mistakes that I've seen them make is going to look at homes, like we stated before, without being pre-approved or having any idea of what type of budget, what type of mortgage they would like to pay. That would be number one mistake. The second mistake they make is not understanding traffic, right? So every city has their traffic areas, and understanding what traffic may be like on a weekend versus on a weekday during rush hour, right? So understanding that as well is also a common mistake. A next mistake is if you need to be in a great school district, right? Understanding the neighborhoods, what areas have better schools than other schools, what areas offer charter schools, what area offer magnet schools. I think, I know for sure, those are key things that buyers need to know and be aware of. And if you're looking for down payment assistance or grants or whatnot, what areas offer grants and down payment assistance? Those are some of the mistakes that buyers make sometimes.
And that reminds me of your last buyer that you recently closed on, how they saw the house on a Friday afternoon, but then they wanted you to come back out and what the house looked like at nighttime. You know what I mean? So like when you look at a house, maybe you think, well, maybe I should go this time of day or this time of day, because like we have some other friends who live near train tracks. Of course, you don't go during the train track, but then you buy the house and the train is coming every night at midnight. You're like, oh my God, if I would have known this, I maybe wouldn't have get this house. So that's my little addition. Okay, so why is Tampa such a hot market for people to move here?
So Tampa is definitely a hot market. Now it has cooled down. I'm sure y'all looking at the news, watching the news, going on YouTube, checking out everything, and you hear about people leaving Tampa, taking their investment property. You hear all those different things. But I tell you this, as a real estate agent that's lived here, that people are still moving here, and people are still buying homes, and people are still investing here. And why do you say that? Number one, we have no state income tax, right? Now, insurance has gotten higher. They're working on that right now as well. I don't know if you heard about the new rule. I'm going to post a video about this in the next couple days or so, or next week or so, about what the governor is trying to do with our taxes, right? Property taxes, which is a great thing if it goes through, right? But besides that, we have the ocean, we have the water, we have sunshine every day, which is very beautiful. We have the palm trees. We have fruit trees. We have nightlife.
We have fruit stands. Like, you know how you live in those upper cities and stuff like Chicago, whatever. You just go to the grocery store. But down here, you can pull into the fruit stand, get the fruit from the ground that they grew, and they're just selling it. We have mango trees back there. You want to go see them? But seriously, like, I love Florida because it's like the closest thing to nature if you want it to be.
Right. And we have, of course, we have the MacDill Air Force Base here as well. Like I said, with job opportunities, it is a lot to do in Tampa between sports teams, sporting events. There's so many different things that can be done here in the state of Florida, and definitely in the Tampa area. That's why people are moving here, because either they're moving here to retire, they're moving here to start their families. You have so many different avenues and ways to move. I am a Tampa native. Born here in Tampa at Tampa General Hospital. This is my wife. She says that because she was born up north in Chicago in the cold with no fruit stands. I was brought up on fruits and vegetables, sugar cane, mangoes, bushels of mangoes, coconut water, you name it. That's how I grew up, or I was raised on fishing. One of the pastimes that I definitely personally love to do when I get a chance to is that we have fishing here as well.
Yes. So, because we said all that, you got us all excited, but what are some red flags that we need to look for in a home before we buy it?
Okay, so this is part 1 to this. Next week, we'll be doing part 2 to this as well. So this will be the last question for today. And you say, what are some red flags to buying a home? Some red flags to buying a home are, unfortunately, we hate to talk about, is that if we go into a home and all the doors are not closing. And what do you mean by that? That means it's most likely has been some settlement issues, right? So that's some of the things that I look for on your behalf, is to make sure all the doors close properly. Most homeowners, when they go into a home, guess what they never do? They never close the doors, right?
Well, what does that mean, settlement?
That means that if all the doors, like some doors may not close, but if all the doors are not closed, that means the doors are not square. And you say, well, why aren't the doors square? Doors are not square because you may have a slant somewhere, or the house is shifted, which is allowing all the doors now not to close.
Shifted meaning the foundation of the house.
Right, the foundation of the house. Yeah. So that's a red flag. Another thing that we look at a lot of times are what they call electrical panels. Electrical panels can be older, they can be newer, but there are some outdated ones to look out for that insurance companies here do not like. And we like to negotiate those up front. Another thing we look for are sometimes in a home is just the workmanship of how it was built or how it was remodeled. We do have a lot of investors here that come here and buy homes and what they call flip homes. There's nothing wrong with a flip home if it's built correctly or remodeled correctly, and it was paid attention to, details were paid attention to. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's just some of the things that you look for. The last thing I would like to talk about that you definitely look for in a home is that we do have certain areas here where the ground was not, how should I say that? We call them hot spots in Florida, in which hot spots are spots or areas in Florida where they put the communities or homes on cesspools or trash or some of those things, right? So those are areas that we also try to look out for as well, not just as a real estate agent, but as a homeowner, of course, that you don't want to be in those areas. So again, we thank you for tuning in. My name is Earl Knighten.
And I am Bernetta Knighten.
And we represent the Knighten Group. And we will be here every week to share different tips on Tampa, whether it's home buying, whether it's neighborhoods, whether it's new construction, whether it's hot spots to go eat, it's Mother's Day weekend, whatever it is about Tampa, Florida. This is the spot that you need to tune into, you need to check out, and watch us over and over again. Share with a loved one, share with a friend who may or may not be moving to Tampa. And also, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Also, you'll be able to see where you can set up a one-on-one to be able to talk with us, talk with me and my team, and be able to get all your questions answered personally. Again, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, peace be unto you.
Bye.